The Boeing 727, a revolutionary aircraft in the history of aviation. Why was it so popular? What did the airlines need? And what were some early problems? The Boeing 727 was a revolutionary aircraft designed to operate out of smaller airports that had runways not long enough to handle the big 707s. Boeing needed to create a plane that could descend quickly into airports, while at the same time avoiding structures close to the runway. And they succeeded in that, and it went on to become a great seller with the time period accounted for. The needs. After Boeing introduced the Boeing 707 to the market and rival McDonnell Douglas introduced their DC-8, the market only offered jets that needed long, concrete runways to land on. If you were an airline in need of a fast stopper, you would need a slow, noisy prop plane. So, in the 1960s, three airlines came together to help Boeing make a new aircraft for the market. They were United Airlines, American Airlines, and Eastern Airlines. United Airlines needed a smaller jet that could operate out of high elevation airports. American needed a fuel efficient way to operate on short to medium haul routes, and Eastern needed a new aircraft to fly from the East Coast down to the Caribbean. Eventually, all the airlines got to an agreement on a tri-jet design that needed the following: had to be able to operate at small runways and airports, had to be able to make steep approaches and departures out of small airports, had to be able to operate out of ill-equipped airports. Not very different from the Boeing 707, so flight crews didn't need a whole lot of retraining. To accommodate these requirements, Boeing incorporated the following things: a door with air stairs at the back of the aircraft that can open up and serve as an entrance for passengers so there's no need for any ground stairs, an APU, auxiliary power unit, which is rare at the time, so you can start the engines up without any form of ground power, a big wing with big flaps and no underwing engines to accommodate the very steep approaches, and a retractable tail skid in case of a tail strike. The development of the Boeing 727 was very complex. Like all aircraft, Boeing invested many millions of dollars into the development of the Boeing 727, both in design and testing of the systems, components, and the aircraft as a whole. In 1959, the chairman of British European Airways, or BEA, suggested that Boeing and de Havilland Aircraft Company, later Hugo Siddeley, worked together on a tri-jet design, which later became the Boeing 727 and the Hugo Siddeley Trident. The both designs had a similar layout, the Boeing 727 being slightly larger. At that time, Boeing intended to use three Arson AR-963 turbofan engines, license-built versions of the Rolls-Royce RB-163 spray, used by the Trident. Boeing and de Havilland each sent engineers to each other's company's locations to evaluate each other's design, but Boeing eventually decided against the joint venture. De Havilland had wanted Boeing to build a licensed DH-121, while Boeing felt that the aircraft needed to be designed for the American market with 6 abreast seating, and they wanted it to be able to stop fast on small runways. After around 3 years of development, it was ready, and it costed them a lot. The Grand Entrance. On November 23rd, 1962, the Boeing 727 was revealed to the public and with a grand entrance, with many very curious people looking on. The jet was a big hit with the news, and just 3 months later, on February 9th, 1963, on a cold Saturday morning, the jet registered November 701 uniform made the Boeing 727's first flight, and over 100,000 test flights later, the aircraft was ready to be certified and start operations. The news was all over the aircraft and was the main talking point in aviation for a long time afterwards. The early problems. The Boeing 727 entered commercial service on February 1st, 1964 with Eastern Airlines. Because of its large wing area and 40-degree flaps, the aircraft was very stable during landing, unlike other jets at the time. It was also wildly different from the Boeing 707. The detailed design of the aircraft didn't help. If the aircraft got to a high angle of attack, it could easily stall. To counter this, Boeing made the control columns shake in case of a stall. The other big problem for pilots transitioning from the 707 to the 727 was the sink rate when using full flaps. When flaps are extended 40 degrees for landing, it will slow the plane down dramatically, and because it's an old airplane with old engines that can take quite a while to spool up, this can be very dangerous if not handled correctly. There were also other problems, like there's most of the time, with just about everything but not critical stuff. The passenger operations. After the early problems were fixed by, for example, introducing new checklists and better training, the aircraft became a massive success with over 1,800 sold and built, with notable customers such as PSA, American Airlines, Pan Am, and many more on an international level. The 727 variant. The first Boeing 727-100 November 7001 uniform flew on February 9, 1963. FAA type approval was awarded on December 24th of that year, with initial delivery to United on October 29, 1963, to allow pilot training to commence. The first Boeing 727 passenger service was flown by Eastern Airlines on February 1st, 1964, between Miami, Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia. A stretch version of the 727-100, the -200 is 20 feet, 6.1 meters longer than the Boeing 727-100. A 10 feet, 3 meter fuselage section, a plug, was added in front of the wings, and another 10 feet fuselage section was added behind them. The wingspan and height of the aircraft remained the same on the 727-100 and 727-200, 33 and 10 meters respectively. The original Boeing 727-200 had the same maximum gross weight as the 727-100. However, as the aircraft evolved, a series of higher gross weights and more powerful engines were introduced, along with other improvements. From line number 881, the 727s are dubbed 727-200s Advanced. The retirement. Due to age and other aircraft with the same amount of seats and better range, with much better fuel economy, the 727 was retired up through the 80s and 90s, all the way up until today, where there are no 727s in passenger operation. But notably, there are still around 30 in cargo operations. Kalita Charters with 4 in operation is the biggest one. Legacy. The Boeing 727 has a big legacy as the first big airliner to be able to use more runways. It also introduced a new flap system to the aviation market and will live for a very long time. Thank you for watching.